The only thing I want to know from Rece Davis in this interview, Brownie, is at one point in the first game day show of the year, will there be a segment that says Nick Saban's golf clubs were flown to Europe by our friends at Wheels Up?
Rece is with us now from ESPN's Game Day on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Good to see you again, Rece. How you been?
Doing well. How about you guys?
Doing fantastic. You heard Dunaway's question. You're going over a bit early. Will there be any golf in Ireland?
You know what? I don't know. It's possible. There have been discussions, but typically people who are serious about golf wisely exclude me from such festivities. I'm not an avid golfer. I'm a casual golfer who I will occasionally play with friends, maybe a scramble or two over the course of the year. I'm not an avid golfer, so we'll see.
So interesting year 3 for both Lincoln Riley and Mario Cristobal. If I ask you
you're going right at it.
That's
no
right.
more golf talk. No more travel.
Lance is all football.
I'm like you. I don't play golf either, Rece.
Straight business. We're going straight business.
That's right.
Here.
All football from Lance.
Week 3 LT already, but he's ready to go.
No, but we all remember how good USC and Miami were back in the day. If I ask you who gets back to being a consistent playoff contender first, Miami or USC?
I would say probably because the ACC at this point is not as deep. It's Clemson and Florida State have dominated that conference. I think winning 12 of the last 13 championships. I think we stand to reason there are fewer obstacles for Miami to get there, but I think both can be good. I think it's a really important year for Mario Cristobal, though. I mean, I think he's a game under 500 at Miami. He's one game over 500 in his 14-year career. Now that should be a caveat there that it's difficult to win when Mario started his career, and he did a good job there at FIU. So I think that this is a really important year for him because of what they did in the transfer portal, having a dynamic quarterback, having Cam Ward, having Damian Martinez show up there. They should be good on defense. And their schedule is really, I don't think they have Clemson in the regular season. They get Florida State at home, so I think that this is a huge year for him. I do think both can win. I think some of the adjustments that Lincoln has made at USC, assuming that they are given full reign to play and practice the way they want to. That Danton Lynn is a rising star in the coaching profession, young defensive coordinator who did a great job at UCLA. They've got a couple of other defensive assistants that have come in there that should help them. There's a little bit more of a transition at SC and more obstacles in the Big Ten at this point in time. So to answer your question, I would say it's Miami first, but I think it's a really, really significant year for Miami and Mario Cristobal to do well.
I want to talk about the game that'll take you to Europe. In that very first game, Florida State and Georgia Tech. All respect to Jeff Collins, who's a friend of the show here, and he had that transition from an old school offense and where they were to where they are. But are enough people really talking about what Brent Key has done taking over for Collins? And this could be a very interesting year for Georgia Tech, and it could start in this first game that you're over there for, Tech and Florida State. Man, this game is starting to really get me pumped up.
You know what Brent Key's record is against ranked ACC opponents?
I do not know.
4-0.
Wow.
4-0.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's impressive.
Now, look, I think Florida State is the more talented team, but you don't really know until the games start. It's a new season. You're in Ireland, obviously, so there's a little bit of a lot of unfamiliarity. You've got new players. You got, Florida State is, new quarterback. Guy's played a lot, but it's his first game at Florida State. And Haynes King, I think he led the ACC in touchdowns responsible for. Now, he gave up the football way too much last year, but he is a very talented guy, the former Texas A&M transfer. And he had some great moments for Georgia Tech last year. So I share your enthusiasm for the Rambling Wreck. I do, not to give away the end too early, but I do favor Florida State in the game, obviously, because I think they're a playoff contender and will go to the playoff. But I think Georgia Tech is a better team than Then people realize they ran the ball really well last year. They've got to stop the run. They got to do a better job of that. So that'll be a big thing for them this upcoming year.
That game is a sellout, by the way. So Rece and the crew should be expecting a good crowd there on the college green for game day next Saturday. That game is a sellout. In fact, Rece, I mentioned this on the show. I've had 2 people in Birmingham tell me they're going. So Birmingham, Alabama representing.
You know what? It should be great. I was talking a few weeks ago with Adam Fuller, the defensive coordinator at Florida State, and we were talking about the team, and then we are talking about the trip a little bit. And I told him, I said, I've never even had a passport until a few months ago. I said the only time I've been out of the country was when you could go to Canada with your driver's license. I'm not really sure anyone would care to do that now, but back in the day, that was a fun trip. As I digress, and Adam said, I can go. He said, I can do you one better. He said, I've never been out of the country at all. So we've got, I'm making a maiden voyage outside the continental United States, or at least outside of North America, and so too is the Seminoles defensive coordinator. So I'm going to do a little more sightseeing as I'm going over earlier than I'm sure Adam and his family will have the opportunity to do.
Likely. Your second show, though, will likely be a little bit warmer than your first show, deep in the heart of Texas there.
You think?
Yeah. I mean, you guys may I haven't looked ahead at the 10-day there in Ireland, but I'm going to suggest you will not need the same type of clothing in College Station, Texas.
Correct.
This is correct. But man, what a fascinating game. We've talked about it a lot, that Notre Dame's schedule, if they can win this game over Texas A&M, is a college football playoff schedule for them. However, Rece, if A&M can get the win, you start looking at them and say, maybe that's a team I should pay attention to for the playoff.
Yeah, I agree. It's a huge game for both. I mean, Notre Dame does have Florida State in November, but that game's in South Bend, and then they wrap up against USC, and I think USC is still talented and certainly would figure to be dangerous to anybody. But I agree with you. If they get past that game, then the Fighting Irish are well on their way. And remember, even if one little thing to remember about this new playoff format, even if Notre Dame were to be undefeated and ranked number 1 in the nation, the highest seed they can get is 5. But that would give them a home game likely against the group of 5 champion. But as it pertains to A&M, there's a lot of talent, even though they've lost a lot in the portal. I think Elko is just a tremendous coach. Man, he did an unbelievable job at Duke. I know they've had a couple of injuries in camp so far, but they still have a formidable defensive line. Wegman is highly thought of as a quarterback, even though he's had difficulty staying healthy. They added, Nick Scorton from Purdue, who led the Big Ten in sacks last year. He's actually, I think, was overlooked by the Aggies earlier. He's from Bryan, Texas, and going back home. So I think they're going to be dangerous. And looking at their schedule, it doesn't set up badly for them. I mean, I think Missouri's going to be really good, but they have that game, at Kyle Field. They've got LSU at home. They do have to go to Auburn. They've got Texas at home. So, things set up pretty well for A&M. You make a great point. They've sort of got the anti-Oklahoma schedule in terms of home and away. Oklahoma, everybody's talking about Texas running the Big 12. Well, Oklahoma ran the Big 12. They won half of the championships in the entire history of the Big 12 when it came into existence in the late 90s. Yet they played 4 of the top 11 teams in the country, 6 ranked opponents, and I think 4 of them away from Norman. So, a lot of it with these expanded and bloated conferences, I'm not a big schedule-only guy. And what I mean by that is you say, well, a team's okay, but they don't play a tough schedule. Well, they're going to get beat by somebody. If you're not good enough, a loss will find you. But if you're good and you have a favorable schedule, then that's a huge consideration, and we'll find out a lot about A&M, whether they're good enough to take advantage of that right out of the gate, I think.
Who plays for another national championship again first, Clemson or Michigan?
You like all of these either or questions. You're locked in. You're locked into this embrace debate thing. Both of them could. I'm really high on both, but I've on our podcast this week, I picked Clemson to win the ACC. Now I think I do favor Georgia in that game at first, and I think that Florida State will probably beat them in Tallahassee, and Clemson will win the rematch. I think Clemson and Florida State go to the playoff. So I'm going to say Clemson. I mean, I think reports of Clemson's demise have been greatly exaggerated. And you guys know Dabo well, and there's nothing Dabo would love more than to be able to stand up at a college football playoff press conference, or better yet, stand up there with us giving him the trophy going, yeah, we didn't even use the transfer portal. Poor little old Clemson. Here we are again. It's been pulling down another trophy. But, I think both of them will be in contention. I think Michigan might take a little step back this year, certainly from what it has been, the last 3 years now. But, I think that I think Michigan is there to stay. I'm a big fan of Sharon Moore. I think he'll do a fine job there. They're going to recruit well. But I think Clemson's had a little dip. There are very tangible reasons for it. Wide receiver play, quarterback play. And, the little secret about Clemson is that their offensive line play, even through their glory years, has just been fine. It's been they get it done at the right moments. I don't know that anyone would say it's been overpowering. So they know where the issues are. I figure Dabo and his guys can fix it, and I expect Clemson to have a really good year this year.
Rece Davis, Pete Thamel with the College Game Day pod out there. They debate a lot of things. LT, cuts his teeth on that first take every day before he comes to work, so he's ready for debates.
I'm sorry, man. I'm just messing with you.
Oh, no, I'm good, Rece.
I've got that cold pizza vibe from back in the day with the Deuce. I was on the golf course yesterday, and, a bunch of old guys playing golf, Rece, and I was talking about things we miss in college football, and I want to ask you what you miss. The thing that I went to was, before we all had the computers in our hands all the time, or ribbon boards at the stadium, I missed the announcer at the game during a timeout saying, score right now from Tuscaloosa, if you're in Auburn for the game, and they would say, score right now in Tuscaloosa, Alabama 20, LSU 21. They wouldn't even do it a sportscaster correct.
Right,
they would do it backwards just to get the reaction from the crowd, and they would go crazy. You don't get that anymore. What is something you miss from yesteryear of college football?
Boy, that's a really good one, Jim. That's a blast from the past. Our old friend Chris Felica, who used to be on Game Day, would often leave voice recordings in a group message exactly like you're saying. He would come on and imitate his version of a stadium announcer. Score from Bloomington in the first quarter, Michigan 3. Indiana 7, and then he would start humming the Indiana fight song, or something like that. So yeah, that's a great one. I think the first thing that came to mind when you started your question, you went in a different direction on me, which I love. But the thing I haven't missed yet, but I'm going to, and I don't want this to be misconstrued as being against the expanded playoff. I'm going to miss the be-all, end-all feel of a regular season game. Whether that's been hasn't always proven to be the case. Ohio State, Michigan, a couple of years ago, Ohio State got in anyway. But on that day, and it had a very specific set of circumstances had to happen for Ohio State to still get the playoff berth. But the feeling in the stadium for a game like that, like Alabama LSU in 2019.
Yep.
Alabama Auburn 2013, it was a little bit different and remembered for a different thing. But, games like that only college football had in the regular season are going to be part of the nostalgia, like the stadium announcers. Those days are gone. And it's okay. Things change, and it's probably time to pay that price. But I just feel like that is a cost that is associated with this progress. Nothing comes for free. And I'm for the expanded playoff, and the excitement around it arguably makes this the most anticipated college football season ever or in our lifetime. But I don't think it comes at zero cost, and I think that's one of them.
Okay.
I like the announcers. Maybe they should take down the ribbon boards for, we always have the theme games. Penn State has the whiteout. Maybe you have the one game where no scores allowed inside the stadium until the stadium announcer delivers them.
Rece, I am not going to ask you a this or that, but how are you guys going to do the pick segment this year?
I was worried about this. I was worried about it.
You guys have so many personalities with Saban coming on, McAfee coming back. How many guys are going to be up there? How many guys will actually be doing their picks?
Everybody. Nothing changes about that, except with the exception of obviously Nick's edition. But everybody will be up there. LC's not going to Ireland, starting his 37th year with us. He feels fine. I talked to him yesterday. He's just decided to crank it up in College Station when the real games start. Well, it's a real game, but when a full schedule starts. So this week or the first week 0, it'll just be all of us with the exception of LC. But once the season starts in full, week 1, it'll be all of us up there.
One of my favorite things Rece says is when he says, okay, let's pick up the pace on this pick, because it's almost kickoff when Rece is telling people to pick up the pace. We're about to kick it off, baby.
It's that's the thing is that sometimes, there's a finite amount of time, obviously. That's stating the obvious. But one of the things I try to remind the guys of is our producer, Jim Galliero, is the only one who doesn't get to walk away from screwing up the time. And it's not his fault. We get to the end and he's screaming at all of us. And I try to, go and say, okay, let's pick up the pace. Let's go quick tempo. Let's go Gus Malzahn on the ball here, and get it done. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And if we mess it up, have to drop a game we shouldn't, get a little more time out of the noon kickoff window, then the rest of us go, oh man, Jim, sorry, but hey, we'll pick it up next time. Jim's the one that gets yelled at, by the game producer, for cutting into the guy's pregame or something. So anyway, but yeah, that's sometimes we do have to do it, and we'll all have to be cognizant of that. And I'll have to be cognizant of it from my standpoint, because I think, and Kirk and I've talked about this over the years, it's nice when I can sort of deliver a sentence that gives the stakes of what the game would be or trend or something, some little note. I'm going to have to be really even more disciplined in that regard. I don't want to just, say Alabama, Missouri, and, make a pick. And, you want to give a little context, but I'm also going to have to be cognizant of, of the number of people that need to make their points too. So we'll find the balance, but I'm sure I'll have to tell them to pick up the pace a little bit. And then one of them will say, I'm the only one that picked up the pace. He didn't pick up the pace.
That's right.
You don't have to give this away, but celebrity picker. Are we going to have an Irish flavor like a Roy McIlroy maybe? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't say yes to Rory.
Yes.
Yes, Irish flavor, yes.
Okay, Irish flavored guest picker. Okay.
For sure. Announcement coming, but I'm not at liberty to deliver that right now.
Yeah. Rece is so familiar with our social media content that we put out. Do not say I just said yes on Roy McIlroy. That's right.
I did not say that. That's not. And I will say this. That's not it.
Yeah, so Rory's in the
just so there's no misunderstanding.
Yeah. PGA Tour playoff, FedEx Cup playoffs. They're playing for $11 billion. It starts this week. Rory is not going to pick games. Even Rory still wants that check. Rece, thank you. Enjoy Ireland. Always good to talk with you.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
You too. Rece Davis with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.